Here's a question that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. Have you ever seen a movie advertised and thought, hey, that looks cool, I can't wait to see that? And then when it's finally released, just, oh boy, that did not live up to expectations. When I first heard they were remaking Hellboy with David Harbour, I was all for it. Then, seeing the trailers with the awesome remix of Smoke on the Water, I thought maybe we were in for something good. But then, actually watching it, it was quite the disappointment. Why, you ask? Well, let's talk about it. What went wrong with Hellboy 2019? The story begins with a flashback to Arthurian times, where monsters and humans are at war. King Arthur meets with the Queen of the Monsters, a witch named Vivienne Nimue, but betrays her and cuts her body into pieces, burying them all across the country. This scene is not good, it's not well acted, and it's trying far too hard to seem cool. Cut to present day, where we're randomly introduced to our hero Hellboy, a demon who works as a paranormal investigator. Hellboy's existence and origins are not explained here, and at first I thought they were just throwing us into the story without feeling the need to explain it. Except, turns out they do just a few scenes later. After killing a vampire, Hellboy is sent by his organisation to go hunt some giants, with a group called the Osiris Club. There, they explain his backstory and how there's a prophecy that states Hellboy will cause the apocalypse someday. This feels misplaced. Like, this should either be right at the beginning or a second act twist. I genuinely don't know why they chose to reveal this here. Not helping is just how pointless the entire Osiris plot turns out to be. See, clearly the witch is going to be the main villain of the plot, but here the Osiris Club turn on Hellboy and try to kill him, but are stopped by the giants. Are they working for the witch? No. Do they at least play a secondary villain role? No. This random betrayal is just there. It adds very little and is barely referenced again. Anyways, Hellboy is rescued by a young woman named Alice who has ghostly spirit medium powers. Hellboy clearly recognises her, but once again, in a very strange choice of storytelling, we aren't shown her backstory until after this appearance, making the twist that it's someone from his past mean absolutely nothing to the audience. Turns out, Hellboy once saved her as a baby from being replaced by a boar monster changeling. Said boar monster is now gathering the pieces of the witch to put her back together and allow her to bring about the age of monsters. But when the witch sees Hellboy, she believes the two of them must bring about the end of the human world together. Hellboy must team up with Alice and an uptight, prejudiced bodyguard who is secretly a were-leopard, in order to prove her wrong and put a stop to her upcoming apocalypse. So, you may have noticed that that's a lot of information, and trust me, I am condensing it down quite a bit. This movie tries to cram so many different plot lines into a single film, to the point where it's hard to really soak them all in. I've already mentioned the problems with the Osiris Club plot, which goes nowhere and takes up far too much time that could have been spent on character development, which is a little lacking. But there's also another completely unnecessary plot with too much time dedicated to it, where it's revealed that on top of being the demon destined to destroy the world, Hellboy is also a descendant of King Arthur, giving him a second, less important prophetic backstory, and a pretty pointless scene involving Merlin that also wastes our time. Like, the first backstory was enough, the second doesn't add that much to his character. But as well as the poor storytelling, this movie absolutely cannot decide what tone it's going for. Sometimes it's trying to be straight up serious, sometimes it's trying to be funny and self-aware, and sometimes it's trying to be dark and edgy. The perfect example of just completely contrasting tone is a scene where a psychic tells Hellboy's origin story, wherein he was being summoned by Rasputin for the Nazis, which is all told in a serious, ominous fashion. But then, out of nowhere, this random over-the-top 40s superhero called the Lobster shows up and takes out the Nazis while talking almost like a Captain America parody. And I know contrasting the serious with the silly and self-aware can sometimes work, just look at Deadpool, but here, this doesn't feel like comedy, it still feels like we're expected to be taking this seriously. Now, if there is one positive I have to say about this movie, it's that I actually did enjoy David Harbour's performance as Hellboy. He was pretty enjoyable, manages to balance the line between serious and silly, and sometimes he is able to make his worst lines work by his grumpy, unimpressed deadpan delivery.
Lady, quit while you're ahead.
But while the hero of the movie isn't too bad, the villain Nimue is a major letdown. Nimue is just an incredibly generic, seductive doomsday villain. She's like a less interesting version of the Enchantress, and that's saying something. Every piece of dialogue that comes out of her mouth is over the top, fancy and flowery, but not in the least bit intimidating, and she completely fails to seem threatening. Not helping is the fact that this film actually does feature a creepy and threatening secondary villain in the form of Baba Yaga, who unfortunately just seems to be sequel bait.
Is it a child?
It's just a human child.
But Nimue's lack of a strong and threatening personality isn't her only problem. There's also the fact that she and her people are maybe a little too sympathetic at times. See, the movie tries to present the conflict between monsters and humans as not entirely black and white, but it really goes too far when trying to present the humans as wrong, with horrifying descriptions of what humans did to witches, the fact that Arthur betrayed Nimue during what was supposedly a peace talk, the fact that the humans seem to be the ones universally prejudiced against monsters, and practically every human character we see, bar Alice, is awful. This movie has basically the same problems as Bright. It does acknowledge that the human prejudice towards monsters is wrong, but then presents the human side as so horrible that you don't want to see Hellboy fitting in with them. The only human that seems to show any respect towards him is Alice, but she hardly counts given she has weird fairy ghost powers too. The Osiris Club is awful, sidekick Daimyo is awful, and Hellboy's father is disrespectful. Hellboy does acknowledge this by calling them out, but nonetheless, they go so far that part of you questions if maybe he should just lead the monsters to a new age. And while Nimue's actions are terrible, maybe she's merely reacting to the atrocious treatment from humanity. During the end, Hellboy is in the position to begin the end of the world, when Alice uses her spirit medium powers to summon his father to plead with him to stop. Now, this would have been a clever idea, except Hellboy's father has been nothing but disrespectful and unloving throughout the entire movie, so I can't help but feel this shouldn't make any difference. I mean, since the flashback to Hellboy's discovery was cut short, I thought we were waiting for the moment to show the continuation, where his father saw a child and grew attached to him. But no further flashbacks, no nothing. His father just orders him around and tries to justify his terrible parenting through telling and not showing. Don't get me wrong, having an even-handed conflict where both sides are flawed is fine, so long as you're going somewhere with it. But this movie goes nowhere outside of Hellboy's early protests. Sure, it reveals that Hellboy is actually half human and descended from both sides, but this doesn't play into how he defeats them. He doesn't take a third option or bring both sides together, he just kills the witch and the invasion stops. When you present a both sides are wrong argument, then having it end with one side winning out anyway without really changing anything, then that ending will feel unsatisfying. So, if that's what went wrong, how would I put it right? Well, I'd begin the movie with the scene where Hellboy rescues Alice in the past, establish who he is, what he does, and the existence of Alice. Then, once that's over, have Hellboy be the one to narrate his backstory. That way, the weird tonal contrast won't exist because him narrating Lobster Johnson's appearance would be fine, because he's not taking it as seriously as the psychic seer woman would. However, notably, he wrongly states that his appearance was Rasputin's mistake, and that he wasn't the world-ending demon the Nazis wanted, so his father chose to look after him, given he was innocent. Cut out the Osiris plot and have Hellboy and his father travel out to Britain to study the disappearances of the witches' body parts, actually develop their relationship and show that they really do care about each other deep down. Have some church leader tell the story of Nimue and King Arthur, and unless Nimue is being played by Cate Blanchett or Tilda Swinton this time, don't focus so much on her flouncy evil queen persona. Instead, give her a more sadistic, manipulative personality like Baba Yaga's. Hellboy gets paired up with Daimyo, who in this version is the only human who shows prejudice towards monsters, because, like I said, this is fine as a concept, they just don't need to over-egg the pudding so much. He goes to take out the thieves during their next raid, who I'd say can be led by the boar monster guy, but maybe have more witches there to make an even fight. They're almost beaten, but are saved by Alice, who manages to take out a lot of the witches, but the boar guy escapes with the witch's body part. Since Alice has been established, now her appearance means something. Have Alice summon one of the dead witches, who reveals that Nimue will be restored to full power once a ritual is complete, and then she'll summon her monster army and destroy the world. That way, we have a time limit, but also have it so that while Nimue is waiting for her power to be restored, she can still appear to Hellboy in visions, and have her be the one to reveal to Hellboy that he is the demon that will bring the end, and that his father was lying, making it more of a shock, and have her try to manipulate him this way, stating that only she can tame and control him, actually providing some inner conflict for him and giving her a real upper hand. Have them try to stop the ritual, but they have to fight the boar man and other monsters, and then have Daimyo reveal that he is secretly a were-leopard, and that's why he has such prejudice against monsters. Have him kill the boar guy, proving his worth after he's been such a jerk, and then when he turns back into a man, have it be a character development moment where Hellboy and Alice assure him it's okay to be one of them. When the ritual is complete, the witch no longer wants just an army of monsters, now she wants demons too, but she needs Hellboy to command them. So she invades the BPRD headquarters and kidnaps Hellboy's father, threatening to kill him if Hellboy doesn't join her. Hellboy refuses, and she's true to her word, which unleashes enough anger in him to release the beast within and the demon army. Alice, like in the original, summons his father's ghost. But rather than just telling him what to do, his dad tells him the second half of the flashback, where he saw an innocent child and couldn't bring himself to kill him, so raised him instead. Then Hellboy returns to his senses and turns the demon army on Nimue's monster army, giving us the awesome climax that the trailers suggested but lied about. Is there a lesson to be learned from this movie? Well, aside from the obvious, figure out exactly what tone you want before writing a script that flip-flops between multiple tones, the big lesson here is that if you are starting up a new franchise, even in today's age of big, important plot-filled movies, don't be afraid to keep the first entry relatively simple. Just have the hero take out the bad guy. Don't try to set up so many sequel hooks, or try to cram as much of the source material into one movie. If it's not relevant, just remove it. And that, my friends, is exactly what went wrong. Thanks for watching the video. So, what did you think about this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you disappointed? Whatever your opinions, comment down below, like, share and subscribe and all that jazz, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Goodbye!